Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to yet another episode of The Achievers Talk. As promised, bringing you the industry's experts. Today, we have with us the consultant gynecologist and the keyhole surgeon, Dr. Usha Kiran. Thank you, Dr. Usha, for joining us today.
Thank you, Energy.
So, Dr. Usha, please tell us more about yourself and what are you specialized in?
I'm a consultant gynecologist. I come from south of India, and I've done my basic medical education in India, and then moved to UK for about 16 years. I was there working, and then I've moved back to I moved back to India for a little while, and then now I'm actually in Dubai. Since last 2016, I've been in Dubai, practicing at mainly Prime Hospital, and I also do surgeries in various other hospitals as well.
Okay, so from India to UK to Dubai. So, why Dubai and how do you find Dubai different from other countries?
So that's actually a very, very interesting question. I had no intention of coming to Dubai.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
So it is, can I say, the fate brought me to Dubai. I had every intention to go to UK because I wanted to see what the advanced world was doing, in terms of medical advancements, and I wanted to learn and train there. So that was a planned move to UK, and I was working as a full-time consultant in the UK, and I wanted to learn everything and then go back to India and then give back to my country what I learned from the Western world. So in 2012, I moved back to India. Since the kids were born and brought up in the UK, my husband and myself decided one of us will move back with the kids to test if they are going to, settle down in India or not. And then the other person will move, because it was more of, we don't want to both of us resign our good jobs and then find that it was difficult to get adjusted with the kids in India. So I moved back in 2012, and my husband continues to stay in the UK, and I moved to Mumbai and started working as an honorary professor in Grand Medical College. That was for 3 years. I loved the job. That was one of my, it wasn't paying me much, hardly paying anything, but it was what I really wanted to do for my country. So I was very happy with the job. But kids were okay with getting used to India because they had been exposed to going back to India regularly. But the problem was my husband, who's born and brought up in Mumbai, didn't want to come back to Mumbai because he felt Mumbai had changed so much with the traffic and everything. He was like, he kept giving excuses. He was like, let me see, next job, next job. And he kept refusing all the jobs that he was getting in India. He wasn't getting anything which was satisfactory to him. So eventually, I realized that he probably was not really happy moving back to India. And the kids kept, they started actually blaming me, saying, because of your love for your country, we are all here, so
Oh,
away from Papa and all that. So then my dad was not keeping very well. So I didn't want to shift back to UK because it's quite far to travel and, support family back home in India. So one of my friends who was in Dubai, I was talking to her. She was with me in the UK, and she had moved to Abu Dhabi that time. And she said, why don't you come down to Dubai? I'd never ever thought of Dubai as a place for work in my whole career, and I always had this feeling of, oh, Dubai is one of those Middle East countries. And so I said, okay, fine, let me see. And I started applying for the jobs, and I very easily, within about 15 days, I started getting a lot of offers from all the hospitals in Dubai. And I said, okay, fine. And a lot of people told me that, oh, in Dubai, as a surgeon, it's going to be very difficult to practice. You will kind of, your experience will go waste and all that. I said, okay, it does not matter. I just want to rejoin the family. So the whole point of coming to Dubai was not at all career based. It was more for rejoining the family, giving them the Western world comforts, and keeping closer to my dad in India. But having said that, coming to Dubai was the best decision of my life, professionally and personally. And I keep telling everybody, why didn't somebody tell me 10 years back to move down to Dubai? I would have done it then.
yeah.
Why did I take such a long time to? Yeah, because Dubai is not like just any Middle Eastern country. That's what I've realized. I've worked now in India, in UK, and I've traveled to various other countries to, train people. And I feel Dubai has the best of everything, the best of everything. east and west. In fact, people get spoiled living in Dubai. If you live in Dubai for some time, you will be useless. You can't live in any other part of the world.
I completely agree with that. And second to what your husband is saying, going back to Mumbai, he wasn't happy. So yes, I'm suffering with the same thing. My husband have recently traveled to Mumbai after 12 years. Okay, though we studied there, but then again, after going just within 2 days' time, he fell sick. So yes, I can understand. But then being a female, compromising for family, and then again taking back your decision of going back to UK and coming to Dubai. But before that, we all know how the Indian society is, and we all know how much struggle a female have to do, especially when your husband is there in UK and you're alone managing things in India with your kids, with your father who is not feeling well that time. So how did you manage, and what challenges did you face there raising the kids alone in absence of your husband?
Well, having said that, I somehow did not find it very difficult. Probably, although I am a female, honestly speaking, the way I've been brought up, my dad has been, he's never treated us like females. Myself and my sister, although we have a younger, brother, we got treated better than him. In fact, we were given more importance, and we were allowed to do everything that we wanted to. Not a single time in my life I've been stopped from doing what I want to do, and that goes to the credit, majority of it goes to my dad. And then I have a husband who let me be what I am, and I do a lot of things that he doesn't like. And he always says that I don't like what you're doing, but carry on, it's your cup of tea. You want to do this, it's up to you. So I've been very, very fortunate, and I've been brought up as a very independent person, not relying on other people to do things for you and trying to do everything on your own. So I mean, I have to say, I have my in-laws back in Mumbai, and they were very helpful. But I'm quite used to doing things on my own. In UK, I was like, working and then bringing up the kids. They were really young then. So that was a little tougher. But in India, you do get a lot of help as well. So it was okay. It was not bad at all.
I'm glad to know that. And most of the successful women, if we talk about, they always have their father, their husband, brother, or say any of the men standing
Yeah.
behind them and supporting. So when we talk about women empowerment, it is always where we
Yeah.
have somebody supporting us. And
Yeah.
let's accept the fact that if men need women to grow, then definitely women also need men to be
Yeah.
with us to grow in their
Yeah.
future. So we are touchwood very blessed
Yeah.
to be surrounded with such men
Exactly.
who are there with us and who believe in us.
Yes, yes, that's most
Great.
important. And let us be what and who we are, instead of trying to put us in a box.
Yes.
That's the most important
sometimes,
thing.
as you rightly said, that they don't like what we are doing,
Yeah.
but they think, okay, you're enjoying it, fine, you do it.
Yeah.
I'm there to back you up if
Yeah.
in case anything goes
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, true. Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. And we would definitely like to know more about what exactly you do as a surgeon. What is your specialty, and how do you help all these people who are needing medical help?
So I'm a consultant gynecologist, which means I deal with the women's problems. Women's problems include the pregnancies, delivery, and also the other problems which are not related to pregnancy. Now, I used to do both of them, but in the last 3-4 years, I've stopped dealing with the pregnancy-related problems. Reason being, I'm very, very busy with the other kind of problems that women have, like fibroids and ovarian cysts and bleeding issues, all the hormonal issues, all those kind of things. So I basically deal with mainly the gynecological part of women's health, and I'm a laparoscopic surgeon, which is a keyhole surgeon. And I am also a scarless surgeon. I introduced scarless surgery for the first time in the UK. So we do nowadays a lot of surgeries which are scarless. That's kind of and I really like what I'm doing. And women feel happy that we are bringing out new techniques and new advancements which helps them. And I specialize mainly in fibroid and endometriosis, which is a very, very common problem and which is a very distressing problem for women.
Okay, talking about hormonal imbalance, this word I have heard a lot thanks to social media as well. I am not very much I acknowledged with this word, but yes, thanks to social media, I have heard a lot about this, that hormonal imbalances are leading a lot of health issues for the ladies. So would you like to elaborate this topic?
See, hormonal imbalance, many times it does not really show up as an actual imbalance on the blood test or anything that you do. But all of us women, we are aware that through during the pregnancy we go through certain hormonal changes which kind of affects our mind and body. We go through premenstrual, during the cycle there are certain changes that happen. Then when we reach the menopause and perimenopausal time, things change as well. So it encompasses a large part of the woman's life. So most of the time, all this is accepted as, if you've had a baby, if you're feeling down, that's normal. If you're about to get a period, if you're feeling angry and irritable, it's normal. If you're menopausal, if you're feeling hot and sweaty and not able to sleep, that is normal. So there is a lot of changes that happen in a woman's body which is being put down side as normal, which nowadays people are becoming more aware. Women are becoming more aware that you don't have to live with these problems. You can address it with medical help. And overall the society is also kind of considering it as a problem. So that awareness has changed quite a lot.
Great. Talking about the awareness, we also know that you do a lot of women empowerment activity and you have your own brand called Womenary, which is a beautiful name. I totally loved it. And please tell us more about it. How do you help people with this brand?
So Womanari is basically a combination of woman from the Western world and Nari from the Eastern world.
Wow.
So the reason I've coined that term for my brand is because I believe nowadays woman is actually a combination. We are no more the completely conservative Eastern women, nor are we completely Westernized. We are a combination of the two. We have taken the good bits from both. And in the logo of my Womanari, there is a half a woman. And the reason for half a woman is that we are born as the people around us can make us empowered, only half of it. If the full empowerment has to come, that has to come from within. You cannot rely on the society or a person, whoever it is around you, to completely empower you. So the reason I've left it as a half a woman is that I want to convey the message to women that if you decide to, you can empower yourselves. Of course, you need help from other people, but it can't be only from other people. Nobody can empower you if you don't want to be empowered. And being the empowerment being the main topic, there are a lot of women empowerment campaigns going on at financial level, at educational level, and various other levels. But being a healthcare provider, I feel I have the skills to improve a woman's health. So I concentrate more on bringing out new techniques for women's health, specializing in things that will make a woman's life better because of sorting their problems out, gynecological problems out. I go around doing some charity camps, surgical camps in remote areas where women cannot really afford to have the surgeries done, or there is no facility for them to be done. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking at.
Being part of this women empowerment activity that you're doing right now with Womenary, we also know that you do a lot of activities in remote areas of India as well. So what exactly you do, and with all this busy schedule, because I know to schedule this interview, I was behind you for months. So how do you manage doing this?
I know. People say to me, especially here in the OR where I operate, anesthetists make fun of me. They say everybody has 24 hours, Dr. Usha has 48 hours in a day. Well, at the end of the day, time management is very crucial if you want to do something. And I always feel that if you prioritize things, what are the most important things for you to do, you can always do them at some point of time. So yes, my schedule is extremely busy here in Dubai. And in spite of that, I always have felt that the reason of going back to India originally was to give back to the country, which has made me what I am today. And that was not possible because of the family reasons that I couldn't stay back in India and serve. So my way of giving back to the country is now trying to address the areas where women healthcare, in terms especially surgical healthcare, which I'm an advanced surgeon, so I can give that healthcare to some remote area where things are not so advanced. So I select areas. I've been going to Kargil and Leh as well for the last 4 years. They organize camps there where women undergo surgery in their own place in their district general hospital. Otherwise, these women will have to travel all the way to Srinagar to do this surgery. So by providing healthcare at their doorsteps, this is my theme. I'm making their life easier, and I'm making their health better. So I've done camps in Robertsganj in Uttar Pradesh. I've been to Chhattisgarh, and I have a bigger plan. In fact, I've been liaising with the health ministers of India to streamline this program, because there are many doctors like me who are actually out of the country for various reasons, because whatever you needed at that point of time was not available in India for you. So you had to look at your personal and career growth. So they've been out of the country. But each Indian, I wouldn't say even Indian, everybody from coming from their own country, to me, like, because I'm an Indian, each Indian who's outside this country, outside India, has this passion or that feeling of wanting to give back to the country. I believe that is there in every Indian. And I want to make this streamlined in such a way that I could get more doctors who will join this movement, where we can give back to the country in terms of the healthcare.
Well, starting from your career till now, I'm listening this word a lot, that giving back to the country, which is actually giving me goosebumps that most of us, when we move out of our country, we're happy with our families, we are earning enough, we are getting new car, new houses, and we are just happy. But not everybody have this feeling of going back to their country or giving back to their country. So hats off to you, Shaji.
Thank you. But I feel I've been very fortunate. I've got God has given me everything, I have to say, from having a parent, two parents who are loving parents, to siblings, to husband and kids, and career, and the teachers who have trained me. At every step, I felt God has been there somewhere trying to look after me, and it has come to a point I feel like I'm only taking. And I feel somewhere along the line it's my turn now to give back what I've got. So that's where the giving back comes from.
Being giver is really not easy. we come across a lot of people who are just takers. So
Yeah.
yes, hats off to you on this.
Thank you.
And talking about helping people, and obviously you must have done a lot of people, helping a lot of people, and you must have saved a lot of people's life. So I wanted you to share any of your experience, you can say the most memorable experience of your career, which you would like our audience to know about.
I wouldn't be able to pinpoint one experience, because I think one of the things about being a doctor, and especially being a gynecologist dealing with women, because you can understand women much more better than anybody else, because you've been through those stages of what they're going through. I get my patients saying almost things to me every day. Every day is a memorable day. Like every day, some patient or the other says to me about what they found, their life changing experience with me. I mean, this morning somebody messaged me saying, "I'm so glad that I met you." Eventually, because she was having some problem and we performed the scarlet surgery for her. And there was one patient who wrote to me saying, kindness does not take money, and I'm so glad that you're so kind. And I feel more than yes, God has given me a skill to operate and do the surgeries and save them from the disease that they're having. More than that, I feel God has given me a heart which actually vibrates with the patients and understands each person. And many patients who come to me tell me, we've been to many doctors, and especially the husbands tell me, she saw you after 5 minutes, she decided that you're the doctor that is going to do our surgery. So where does that trust come from? And I tell them, I'm probably like a tailor. All of us have this tailor around the corner near your house, whom you will go from far off places and get your clothes stitched. I mean, nowadays we get ready-made, but still, we all remember from our good old days. And why would we go to that particular tailor? Because he will tell you, मैडम आपको वी नेक सूट नहीं होगा, आप ये मत कराइए, आपको ये डिज़ाइन नहीं, मैं दूसरा बना के देता हूँ. And he does things for you that you would love, the way that you would love it. So my treatments for patients are based on their customized treatments. I look at patients, I don't rattle off 4 options you have got, you choose what you want to. Yes, I do give them the options, but somewhere along the line I help them make the decision based on their personal needs. So that is where they feel like I'm actually getting into their mind and making that decision for them. So that is where my specialty is, and I'm very glad. I don't know where that quality has come from. It's God given. I'm not done anything to become like that, but that's what makes me happy every day, that every patient walks in. How many of us do get in our lives to make a change in somebody else's life? Being a doctor, that is what we are fortunate about. Every day I get given an opportunity. God says, okay, this is a problem, somebody's problem, you sort that problem out. And I'm very glad to do it. And I feel very grateful that I get the opportunity to do it.
Dr. Usha, I mean, we all know that patients who are coming to you, they come at their phase of life where they are at the weakest point. They are
Yes.
weak. They do not have solutions. And after doctor, I mean, after God, it's only doctor whom they are trusting. So, do you ever feel pressure on you when the entire family is looking forward to see the magic you're going to do and save the family member or their loved ones? So do you really feel pressurized at that moment?
I don't feel the pressure because I've always felt that what I'm doing is not me doing it. I always feel that it's God who does it for me. And before my surgery, every day I say a prayer, be with me. And He's always been there. So, whatever good, bad, whatever happens goes to Him. They say, there is a saying in Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyavadikaraste mapaleshu kadachana. So, you do what you can and leave the outcome to Him. So, this is what I do. When you do your best, the outcome will be good. So, I always tell the patients, I am no God, but I will try my best. I'll give my 100% to do what I can do for you. And I think that dedication makes a difference. You can do your best. And I'm actually 59 now, and I still go to various places. I learn new techniques. I do watch a lot of things to see where I can improve. And I go tell my husband, like, I'm doing this thing, what I was doing before, I'm doing it better this way. And he says, what are you doing at the age of 55 learning more? I said, the more I learn, my patients benefit from me. So there is no age for, learning.
Wow. You're 59.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the most difficult job of the world, being a doctor. You are, apart from doing your doctor's work, you're also doing a lot of activities for women empowerment. You're taking care of the kids, you keep traveling, and look at you. So, as a doctor, what do you want to suggest these ladies to maintain themselves with such a glow and such a grace?
See, one of the things women I find that is that over a period of time, maybe it is cultural, the way we are taught to be, you don't put yourselves first. I'm not saying that you neglect your duties and put yourselves first, but there is a person inside you. This life was given to you to live your life the way you want it to be. Yes, make a few compromises, make a few adjustments, do your duties, but don't forget there is a person inside you. And if you don't actually look after that person, it dies within you, and then you are just somebody who's walking around doing all the duties. You are not the mother, you are not the daughter, you are not the wife, you are not the doctor. You are a person inside, apart from all the roles you're playing. So the roles we are playing are very important. They need to be played very well, but at the same time, looking after yourself and taking care of yourselves as if you are your own child will make things better, and you can retain interest in life.
Wow. So everybody, please make note of this, please. डॉक्टर उषा, जैसे कि आपने बताया, हैंडलिंग द प्रेशर, जिसमें पूरा परिवार, हैविंग दैट होप फ्रॉम यू टू सेव देयर लव्ड वन, कभी ऐसा हुआ है कि आपके हाथों से, और यू कैन से कि आप अपने ऑपरेशन में सक्सेसफुल ना रही हों और यू कुडंट सेव द लाइफ, सो उस वक्त आपकी फीलिंग क्या थी?
There are death. If you're talking about not being able to save the life and death, that has happened extremely rarely, in the sense, which happened once when I was an intern who had just finished my MBBS, and then later on once. The time that was my first death I saw. It was actually a patient who was very ill and very old, and I was working as a duty doctor on the ward, and the patient had a cardiac arrest. And we get taught how to do the CPR, the resuscitation. And there was this senior nurse who was like really an old nurse and very, very experienced. And she helped me do the CPR because I was like, oh my God, this is an emergency. Like my adrenaline was rushing. And she helped me do the CPR, and I did the CPR and everything. And then the specialist came, and the patient basically died. Now, the patient was in actually a very, very bad situation. So he would have died anyway. But it was very, very traumatic for me. I felt like if somebody else was there, that patient would have been saved. And maybe because of me, the patient didn't get saved. And how did I become a doctor? And how can I do this? It was like I went through so much trauma. And the nurse kept, she was such an experienced nurse, she kept telling me, look, that patient was very ill. We were expecting the patient to die anytime. The family also was aware, so you don't go around beating yourselves up. So that was one experience. And the second time, I had a patient whom we had treated everything, and then she had developed malaria in the brain. She had delivered the baby and everything, and then she developed malaria in the brain. And the patient had to be shifted to, it was in a remote place in Kerala, and she had to be shifted to the major hospital. And we arranged the ambulance and everything. Before she could be shifted, she died. It really left me very, very disappointed that I couldn't shift her in the right time because of the ambulance and various other issues. And I still remember this. And in Kerala, when you're working in a private hospital, I was told, like, if somebody dies, they will come and hit you, and there'll be such a big thing which will happen. And so this hospital senior person said, you don't go out and tell the relatives that the patient has died. This was like post, I had finished my post graduation and I was freshly started practicing then. He said, you don't go out, you let somebody else go out and tell. You go home from here, sort of from the back door. Now I was I'm still a very idealistic person, so I would never run out and show my back to anything. So I said, no, it's my duty, she's my patient, and I have got to tell relatives. So I said, it doesn't matter what they want to do with me, that's a different thing, but I will not run out. So I went and spoke to the husband. I told him, look, this is what has happened, and this was cerebral malaria, and we tried our best, and we were trying to shift. I had already explained that she was in a very bad situation. And I'm honestly, I don't know what else to say. I'm very sorry that she's died, and I couldn't do anything about it. You won't believe it. This is what I've come to believe, that honest feelings are transmitted to other people. You don't have to give justifications. Because the patient's husband patted me on my back. He said, doctor, don't feel bad. You did everything that you can. I was like, how can a man who has lost his wife try to console me? And I have patients who, recently I had a patient who was, I'd operated on her, and I was actually away on leave, and she was having some vomiting and things like that, and I was a little worried. So I sent a message. I spoke to one of my colleagues, said, go and see. And like, I kept a check on her in my holiday, regularly checking what was happening with her. And she sends me a message, I was checking on her at 12 o'clock in the night. And she sends me a message saying, doctor, go to sleep, I'm okay.
Oh my God.
But having said that, yeah, death has not happened after that. But complications do happen. In spite of taking care of everything, doing your best efforts, complications rarely happen. But they do happen because of the body's healing, and sometimes cases are more complicated. We explain all this to the patient. I tell them, I'm no God. I can give you 99% guarantee. If you get into a car and your husband is driving, he cannot give you 100% guarantee that he's not going to meet with an accident, despite everything. He can only say he'll take care. So that's exactly I do. So, but most of the times patients do understand. Sometimes they get upset a little bit with a complication, but they come around it once it's sorted. But touch wood, whatever complications, very few have happened. Patients have been sorted out. I haven't lost lives, and I haven't left any patient with disability for life. So that's been, I'm grateful to God for that.
Well, having such a sensitive profession, I would definitely like to know that what is the best decision you think you have ever made in your life?
Becoming a doctor.
Oh, that's
I would
beautiful.
never,
Really?
never ever want to be anything else in my life.
Oh my God. Having, like, knowing the fact that, you have gone through a lot, and,
Yeah.
that time where you even get threatened, still you feel like this is the best
Yes.
decision?
I feel this is the best decision. I would not want to be anything else other than being a doctor. It's the most noble profession, and I do it with my full heart. And I would, if I ever wanted to, everybody asked me, was there any other career you wanted to do? I wanted to do a lot of things, but not as the main career. Main job, this is what I am, and I will always be.
This is so beautiful.
It's a tough job,
Definitely it is. I think
but
this
I
is
would
the
love to do
toughest
this.
job,
Yeah.
because you are not bound to any timelines.
Yeah.
You have to be available, and even though you're on a vacation, and if you
Yeah.
see a patient, yeah, you have to take care
More
of the
than
patient.
that, sometimes you would have had, all of us have personal issues. Sometimes you would have had fight with your husband, whatever, and you're like really in a bad mood. Maybe you were crying at home, but you come back to work and there's somebody sitting in front of you who needs you. you cannot think about yourself. You cannot be self-involved. You'll have to get out of that and say, look, there's somebody else who needs you, and you've got to be there. So in a way, it is therapeutic as well, because you get into that mode of, forget about your troubles, sort other people's troubles at the moment. I remember when the day my dad died, it's a very emotional moment for me. That day I had 6 major surgeries. My father was ill for a few days, and then I was planning to go the weekend, and I had surgeries lined up, so I wanted to finish off. So there were 6 surgeries on that day. I started my OT at 7 o'clock in the morning, finished next day morning at 6 o'clock. And before that, my brother had rung to say that he's actually getting better. Don't worry, come on the weekend, no need to rush. And that was the COVID time. There were a lot of issues with the visa and so not visa, the immigration and all that. So I went home and I was really tired. I went home, had a shower, came back, did my OPD, went back in the afternoon. I said before ringing home, let me just sit down and have something to eat. And I had something to eat, and I rang, and my father had died. So, well, coming back to work, once everything was sorted out, that has kind of helped me heal as well. You come back and you see more troubles, more people with more problems, and you look, life goes on, and it in a way helps to recover, in a way helps to heal. If not for this profession, I would go mad with all the problems that you have in your lives.
My God,
So
but
profession is, I'm helping people and they're helping me.
I think you really need to be very strong to do this. It's not everybody. I don't. I think God picks people who can handle this
I'm sure he
and
does.
make sure that they're doing it so
Yeah.
well. So really, it's not easy. I mean, I know people who take years to come out of depressions, their
Yeah.
personal problems, and you guys are like, okay, I'm just going
We
half
don't
an
have a
hour.
choice.
Yeah, exactly. We know that you keep studying about the new technologies and new ways to help ladies and, like, empowering women. We also know that you have introduced some new technologies in the world of medical field. So can you please tell our audience more about it?
So there are two things that after coming to UAE I've kind of brought in for women. One is the scarless surgery technique, which is being practiced in other parts of the world. So I trained for it and I came and introduced that in UAE. So I'm very happy that after I introduced it, some of the surgeons have started doing it as well. But I do quite a lot of my surgery scarless, completely scarless. Everything is kind of done below through the telescope from below. So normally when we talk about minimal cuts, we talk about laparoscopic keyhole surgery where you have small cuts on the abdomen. I do these surgeries even without those cuts. So
Without cuts?
without cuts
Wow.
at all. There's no cut on anywhere on the body that you can see. So that is a big boon for women in terms of recovery, because there is no cut on the abdomen. They can get up and walk around, start getting back to regular life quicker. So most of my patients are very, very happy with this procedure. The second one I recently have introduced, one or two hospitals I think in Dubai are doing it as well. I wouldn't say I'm the first one to do it. Is the microwave and radio frequency ablation of the fibroids, which again reduces the amount of cutting, amount of blood loss, makes the recovery much better. So it is a newer technique which is going to help women to have less scar on their uterus, for fertility purposes, keeping the uterus nice and intact. So that is something that I've introduced now in Prime Hospital, and I'm very happy. I would love to bring in things which are advanced, which will help women recover better and get back to life. That's what my aim is.
Wow, we are looking forward for this. And yes, please share more information about your upcoming projects with us.
So the upcoming projects, as such, I don't have anything in terms of innovative technique at the moment. One or two things that I would like to go and train and come back. Uh, but the main upcoming project for me is back home in India, my Giving Back project, wherein I've been liaising with the. So what I did was, it was something very, very strange. I decided to write to all the health ministers and chief ministers of India a mail to say that I want to actually work for remote areas, and I want to recruit some of the overseas doctors who are very, very keen on helping women in remote parts of India. And I would like the government to help us support this program so that we can bring healthcare to the remote parts of the world in India. So that is our way of giving back to the country
the
from the
country.
overseas doctors. And my husband laughed at it. He said, "Nobody is going to reply to your email. No government official replies." I've had 4 replies. so far. And
Wow.
the first time I didn't get any. Mr. Modi's office is also getting this mail repeatedly. I've got a secretary. I've told her, keep sending this mail till they respond.
My God.
Until the day I die. I'm not giving up. Modi's office has not responded, but there are four chief ministers who have responded. One from Madhya Pradesh, one from Meghalaya, one from Kerala, and I just now had one from Tripura. As I was sitting checking the message, I said I'll ring them back in 2 hours' time. So I'm hoping that it is my dream that every remote place in India gets the healthcare, advanced healthcare, from the doctors who have really, learned all this and who are wanting to give back to the country. So that is my biggest project of my life. I'll be very glad the day when I die, I've at least served half of India, if not fully.
Wow. I mean, you're doing so much, Dr. Usha, and you're putting a lot of efforts and without any benefit. You're just doing it for people, and you're thinking so much about people who are in, like, no, back in your country. And I don't think that you might be getting any time for yourself.
No, I have a lot of time. I do horse riding. I do
Oh,
a lot of
really?
things. I do adventures. But
So,
before that, I want to say something.
yeah.
Without getting anything is not true. Okay. My son asked me, Mama, you go waste all your time. You pay for your flight tickets and you go and do some surgeries for which you're not getting paid. And the same surgeries you get paid so much in Dubai and you're wasting your time there in India. So are they really giving you anything back? So I said, they are. He said, where? I don't see any money being paid. So not everything that you get back in life is based on something which is tangible, like money or comfort or anything else. There are a lot of non-tangible, abstract things that you get back from when you do something for somebody. When you do something, you get something. You pass on a positive energy, you get on a positive back for some positive energy. I told my son, I'm getting. He said, what? I said, have you heard of दुआ? दुआ के नाम सुना है तूने? आज अगर तू अच्छा पढ़ रहा है, तेरा हेल्थ अच्छा है, एंड इफ़ योर लाइफ इज़ गोइंग स्मूथली, वेयर इज इट कमिंग फ्रॉम? बिकॉज एवरी पेशेंट दैट आई ट्रीट सेज, आपकी ऊपर वाला आपकी अच्छा रखे, आपके बच्चे अच्छे रखे, आपकी फैमिली अच्छा रखे, आपकी हेल्थ अच्छा रखे. सो एवरी पेशेंट blesses me with a blessing, and the power of blessing I feel is immense. No money can buy you the power of blessing.
True.
And so I am getting back, I'm becoming richer every day, richer in my mind, in my body, in my mind, health, mental, physical, and my life is becoming richer.
Such a beautiful thought, and you're, implanting the same thought to your next generation as well. It's so beautiful. And Dr. Usha, just you mentioned that you like doing horse riding. So, what are the other mode of entertainments for such a beautiful lady, such a busy lady? We would definitely like to know.
So horse riding is one of the things that I wanted to learn. So I've been learning. In between I got too busy, so I stopped. But I want to get back. But I do a lot of activities. I try to learn dancing. I try to learn music. I haven't learned. I don't think I have any talent for any of those, but I would like to learn. And my biggest thing is I like mountain climbing, and I've climbed Kilimanjaro twice, Everest Base Camp twice, and I've done Machu Picchu. I became the world's oldest woman to do Manasulu, which is an 8,000-meter peak in Nepal, which is the
Wow.
eighth highest and the fourth dangerous mountain of the world, peak of the world. And that was very challenging, slightly less than Everest it is. So I hope to do the Everest someday.
Oh my God, at this age, you're doing so much. And if we talk about our generation, I mean, the Gen Z
Yeah.
especially, they are all busy with the social media. And I don't know where is the generation right now going on. So, what do you think? How does social media is impacting the life current?
Social media has its upside and downside as well. Today, as we speak, we are doing this and we're probably posting this reel on the social media. So, everything that has come, every new innovation that has come, whether it is in technology or in medicine or in the social circle, it has come for a purpose to do good. Now, how we use it is entirely up to us. There is a small saying in Kannada, which is my mother tongue, Mangan Kaig Manikya Kotre, which is basically you're giving a pearl to a monkey. So he's not going to know the worth of it, and he's going to misuse it and throw it away, whatever.
Hmm.
So social media has its power to change the world if you want to. So today, if somebody is listening to me and my thoughts, I'm sure if there are a million people listening to this particular podcast, I'm sure there's at least one or two people who got converted to lead life in a different way. So that is my contribution. So everything has the power to change things. It depends. If you're only watching social media only for entertainment, not taking anything out of it, then I learn a lot of cooking things from the social media. I love to cook, and I've started trying out more recipes since I started using social media. So
Yeah, and we know you were one of our finalists for the Gulf Super Chef
yeah.
contest, and amazing dishes we got to try.
Yeah.
And I still remember when you came for the shoot as well, you were just cooking, and during the time when everybody was having lunch and break, you were running
Rushing
and
to the hospital.
doing the surgery and then coming back. Oh my God, what amazing job you're doing, Usha ji.
Thank you.
And definitely we have a lot to learn from you. What advice would you give to the upcoming doctors or people who are joining the medical field? Definitely your advice matters a lot.
Well, people coming to the medical field, I would say, please don't come to this field if it is not your passion to serve people, because that's not going to change. You might, nowadays medical profession, we might earn more money than what people used to earn before, but still serving is the main thing. If you cannot come to this profession if money is your aim, there are a lot of other professions which will provide you money. But I told both of my kids that if you want to do medicine, remember this, that many times money may come, money may not come. Comfort, you look at me and say, oh, mama is a very famous doctor, she's earning a lot of money, she's good life. Don't look at this, you look at the hard work behind that. If someday you're ready to actually sleep without any of this, there's one thing which is guaranteed: a satisfaction of having done something good. That is the only thing that is guaranteed in this profession. Many times, patients sometimes even blame you, but you in yourself will feel you did your best, and that's the only thing that's guaranteed. So if you are not ready to accept that, please don't come.
Oh my God. So, guys, please, whoever is coming, the points are very clear. Okay. So, please keep note of this. Thank you so much, Dr. Usha. And we all know how busy you are. And I know how difficult for me to convince you to come here. So, thank you so much for your time. And we really value the contribution you're doing for the medical industry, for empowering women, going back to the country, and all the hassle. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Any
very much.
message you want to give to all of us?
Listen to what comes from within you, and you will be on the right path. You don't need to look anywhere else.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.